Hello, everybody. Josh here, and welcome to your AEW Full Gear 2025 post-show review. This is where, or the pay-per review is what I call these. I keep forgetting to call them that. But that is what the series is called. The pay-per review of the Kayfabe Central podcast. So, welcome back to another episode. As I mentioned, I am going over AEW Full Gear 2025 that just wrapped up. It's currently like 12:34 in the morning. So, fairly late, but honestly not the latest an AEW pay-per-view has ran before. They've had much longer shows before, so you know what? I'm still grateful that this one was at least not like 6, 7 hours or anything like that. It was only what 4 hours. So not as long as an AEW pay-per-view usually is. So I appreciated that. Um, yeah, we're gonna be talking about AEW Full Gear 2025. Before I get into that though, make sure you guys subscribe, like, and comment, hit the notification bell so you're up to date with all the videos, podcasts, and interviews that come to the channel. Subscribe. Don't subscribe to the KFIB Central Go 5 page because I'm not posting anything there at the moment. But go check out the KFIB Central website. That's where I post all my coverage posts, like AEW Full Gear coverage posts, articles, and written predictions are all over there on the Kayfabe Central website. So make sure you guys go check that stuff out. Um, I also have a group and community section over there on the Kayfabe Central website. So if you want a place to ask me anything wrestling related, go over there and ask me, or you guys can just build a community over there, or you can build a community over on the Kayfabe Central Discord server. That is linked down below in the description. So make sure you guys go check that out if you want a place to chat it up about wrestling and build a little bit of a community within Kayfabe Central. So yeah, all that's linked down below. Um, Self promo out the way, get that out the way quickly. We're gonna jump straight into AEW Full Gear. Um, I think this was a really solid pay-per-view. Um, I didn't find anything really wrong with this. There were like maybe a couple things that I'm gonna bring up where I was like, okay, that's an interesting route, I guess. Um, but I'll go through that when we cross that bridge. Obviously, we started off with the Saturday tailgate brawl. Um, so I missed like half of um, the tailgate brawl, and it was because I was, setting up dinner and all that stuff. So I missed some of the tailgate brawl, but they kicked it off with the 200K four-way tag team match. The Bang Bang Gang, Austin Gunn, and Juice Robinson defeated Max Caster, Anthony Bowens, Big Bill, and Brian Keith, and the Outrunners to win the 200K for Juice Robinson and Austin Gunn. I can't really comment on the match quality again because I didn't watch this match, but I I did throw around, Austin Gunn and Juice Robinson potentially winning it because of their promo that they had on Collision. So uh yeah, fine, I guess. I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. I don't think this really mattered too much. I think it was just a means of to get as many people as Tony Khan can on the card, which is fine. You know, the tailgate brawl. It doesn't mean a whole lot. So, cool for Juice Robinson and Austin Gunn that they picked up the victory there. We then had the tag team match. Boom and Doom, Big Boom AJ and QT Marshall defeated RPG Vice, Rocky Romero, and Trent Beretta. Um, this was whatever. Again, it was exactly what I expected it to be. What I talked about in my predictions video with Rue. Um, it was whatever. I'm forgetting the kid's name now. Um, was it the Rizzler? Um, is that what they call him, the Rizzler? If that was the kid who hit the diamond cutter uh on Rocky Romero, I believe it was. Rocky Romero just takes every bump. Um he just takes it all. He's that guy for the Don Callis family, which you know what I mentioned before is completely fine. It is what it is. Sometimes people fit that role a lot better. Um I think Rocky Romero has really played that role honestly throughout his entire AEW career. Um, whether he's a babyface or a heel, um, he's usually played that role, so that's fine. This was whatever. Again, it doesn't mean too much. I didn't pay too much attention to this match. I was in the room for this match, and I was watching bits and pieces of it, but I didn't really care too much, to be honest, to pay much attention to it. So, yeah, that was that. It was fun at some points. There were some points where I was, it popped me a little bit, like the Rizzler hitting the cutter, or maybe it was the other kid. I think they have two, like obviously they have two different names, but two different nicknames. So I can't remember completely. Uh, but yeah, so Boom and Doom win that tag match. Um, so this is weird because the next match was Eddie Kingston and Hook defeating the Workhorsemen Anthony Henry and JD Drake. Um, I think I walked out of the room after Boom and Doom won, and I went to go do something else. I can't even remember what it was, but I missed this match. And so I have no idea how it went down, how the match quality was, but I assume um, it was just a pretty quick finish because I think I came in to the room towards the end of the match and it just seemed like it was a fairly quick match. I mean, it was within an hour, so I don't imagine they went, a distance anyway. Um, I don't even really know much about the Workhorsemen either. I think if I'm mistaken, someone correct me, but I think they're Ring of Honor guys. So, and I don't watch Ring of Honor, so I wouldn't know. Uh, but yeah, cool. We're gonna be talking about Hook a little bit later on because he played a pivotal role in the ending of this pay-per-view, but we're gonna get there when we get there. Um, we then had the CMLL World Trios Championship match. El Sky Team defeated the Don Callis family, Kazuchika Okada, Konosuke Takeshita, and Hedge Zero. This match spilled into the main card. This was fun. There was a lot of fun spots in this match, and you know what? You put six guys like this together, and you know what? I had no idea who anybody was on El Sky Team until I saw Mascara Dorada and Mystico was on there, and I forget the third guy's name. But I saw them. I was like, oh, I do know who's on El Sky team. So you know what? Mascara Dorada is fun. He's becoming one of my favorite luchadors in the entire world right now. Because he just does things that like you wouldn't think a human being could do and is physically possible to do. And he does those things. So I love Mascara Dorada. And this was really fun. I love they did this for the last pay-per-view. I think they did it for Wrestle's Dream, where they spill the tailgate brawl or the last match on the tailgate brawl into the main card and the pyro is just going off while, they're fighting. So I think that's a very cool visual, and then you just jump straight into the action. So for somebody who doesn't watch the Tailgate Brawl, um, and they turn on the pay-per-view, they're right to a match, and it's like, oh wait, hold on, I've got to pay attention to this. One thing I will say about this pay-per-view, and the past few AEW pay-per-views, their pacing has been really solid. Um, there's not a whole lot of ads in between matches, which I appreciate for the most part. And I don't appreciate like when WWE has so many ads in between matches and it's just it doesn't make the pay-per-view flow well. Whereas when AEW just does match, 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 sometimes it can be a bit hectic, like especially when doing coverage posts. And I'm like, okay, wait, I need to catch up first. Hold on, maybe give me one ad, and then we'll get back to it, and I'll be caught up. Um, but I do give them props and kudos for just going for it like match after match, so it doesn't waste too much time, because. They gave a lot of matches on this card a lot of time, as they usually do with an AEW pay-per-view, which is why this pay-per-view went so long. It wasn't a matter of like there was a lot of ads. We had a couple DraftKings ads in there and a couple backstage segments, but it wasn't a lot at all. I think we had maybe one or two backstage segments, and then like two. DraftKings ad, one of them being Tony Storm and then the other being Renee, RJ City, and somebody else. I can't remember who. So they didn't have a lot of ads on this, which I'm completely okay with. I don't like I said, when WWE does ads in like the middle of every single match, and it takes so much time out of the pay-per-view, so much unnecessary time out of the pay-per-view. Um, but yeah, that kicked it off. El Sky team retains. We went into the first official match of the main card. That was Pac versus Darby Allin. Pac defeats Darby Allin with some help from Wheeler Yuta, of course. Anybody in the Death Riders is not going to win clean. This match was fine. Uh, both of these guys are talented. I think the objective here was for them to put on a good match because I said from the jump, the storyline aspect of this doesn't really interest me, um, because it just seems like they're dragging this Death Riders thing out so far and so long. It's getting a little bit dry and stale. So I wasn't really into this match from the start, but they put on a good match, and you know what? I'll give them that. It's not like it was a bad match or anything. Just from a storyline point of view, I didn't really care for it much. But Pac picks up the win, which is interesting. Because I was saying that Darby Allin is just going to pick up the win unless they are building Pac up to be the new leader of the Death Riders, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that when I talk about another match, and another Death Riders member a little bit later on. Um, so I'll circle back to that. We then went to the four-way match to determine the stipulation for their semifinals match in the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championship Tournament. God, that's a mouthful. But the Timeless Love Bombs win that match against Marina Shafir and Megan Bayne, the Babes of Wrath, and the Sisters of Sin. Um, I can't remember who I fully landed on to win this match, but I know a lot of people were saying the Timeless Love Bombs were going to win, and they were in the back of my mind to win. Um, I wasn't even really sure. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, okay, maybe the Timeless Love Bombs are going to win because I can see Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir winning, and I can see um, Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale winning. Rue picked the Sisters of Sin, and I started to see that a little bit more. I'm like, okay, the Sisters of Sin may not win this tournament. So it's possible they win this match and we see some sort of hardcore match. But they went with the Timeless Love Bombs, and that just goes to uh goes to show that they are definitely not winning this tournament because I think we all know, and I've mentioned this on the predictions podcast as well, whoever wins this match is not going to win the entire tournament. They're just not going to do that. It never works that way. Um, but cool for the Timeless Love Bombs. They get a win under their belt. They get to pick the stipulation for their semifinals match. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win their semifinals match, of course. They could end up losing. Um, I'm forgetting who's on which side of the bracket right now. Um, but I don't know who we see in the finals. Maybe it's the Timeless Love Bombs and Harley and Willow in the finals because I think they're on the opposite sides of the bracket. I think on the right side it's the Timeless Love Bombs and Bane and Shafir. And on the other side, it's the Sisters of Sin and the Babes of Wrath, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe that's the final. I think Bane and Shafir versus Harley and Willow in the finals makes a little bit more sense though. So um, I can see the Timeless Love Bombs losing their semifinals match. Um, we then went to the tag team match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. FTR defeats Bro Dito to win the AEW tag titles. I fully expected this. A lot of us, I can't speak. A lot of us expected this for FTR to win just because of the role they were on, the storylines they're involved in. It made the most sense. Fantastic match though. One of my favorite matches of the night. That was tag team wrestling at its peak, And yeah, I love this match. This is definitely a match I would tell somebody to go back and watch. If you miss this pay-per-view, I mean, a lot of this, a lot of matches on this pay-per-view, I would tell you to go back and watch, because the wrestling quality is was really, really solid on this show. But definitely this match, go back and watch because they both put on a show. Both teams put on a show. Really good stuff, really good spots. In the end, FTR wins the tag titles. Uh, yeah, I think we're just gonna set up eventually for FTR versus Edge and Christian, for those tag titles this time. And I brought up the idea that maybe we could see FTR versus the Young Bucks for those tag titles as well. So that's definitely a route they can go. So congratulations to FTR. Um, Definitely deserved that they've been on a roll with this run that they've been doing. Um, and now they have the tag titles to, be even more arrogant. So that's going to be interesting to see in the next coming weeks on Dynamite. We then went to the Casino Gauntlet match for the inaugural AEW National Championship. That was won by Ricochet. Obviously, the match started off with Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. The thing with the Casino Gauntlet is like you never know how long each interval is going to be. So when Bobby and Shelton started, the interval was pretty quick, and that's when Ricochet came out. There wasn't really any surprise entrance in this one. Um, which it's fine. You don't want to overdo it every single time to the point where it's like, okay, every single Casino Gauntlet match, people expect a surprise. We had Daddy Magic in this Casino Gauntlet, and that was like the biggest surprise, I guess you could say. He brawled with Daniel Garcia into the crowd. I cannot speak today. I am exhausted. So much stuff from this week and just today alone. Uh, but yeah, fun Casino Gauntlet match. Not my favorite Casino Gauntlet match. There's been a lot other better ones that we've had before in AEW, but it wasn't terrible either. Um, yeah, Ricochet's the new national championship. Completely expected this. It makes sense because he's the one, if you're really gonna go through with defending this across the world. Ricochet makes the most sense because he's the one who goes to other promotions, all that. He's gone to New Japan at some point, so it makes sense for Ricochet to hold this title. And yeah, hopefully he can do some good things with it. Uh, that is when we went to the no holds barred match between Kyle O'Reilly and John Moxley, an absolutely brutal match. As you would expect, there was forks involved in this. Both guys got stabbed with a fork in the head. Um, there was a point in this match where John Moxley was like stabbing the fork along the back of Kyle O'Reilly, which, man, I don't understand. Like, why? That's what I was asking this entire match. I was like, just why? Why do you do this every single time, Mox? And Moxley's not going to take a break. He's going to continue to do these crazy things, and he's going to show up on Dynamite the next week. Somebody needs to tell Moxley that it is perfectly okay to take a break. Um, but yeah, this was a really fun match. Really, really good match. Kyle O'Reilly picks up the win. I was saying that John Moxley was just gonna pick up the win. But I know a lot of other people were picking Kyle O'Reilly to win. I wasn't holding out hope that was the wrong use of words. I didn't think that this push for Kyle O'Reilly was gonna last long, is what I was trying to say. Um, I was hoping that it did, and it seems like it is. It seems like they're gonna go a little bit further with this push, because he beat John Moxley, and that's one of his, if not his biggest win in AEW. Um, or maybe just in general, to be honest. Um, so he beats John Moxley. It seems like they're gonna push him more, and I'm glad. I really like Kyle O'Reilly. He's so damn good. Um, if you're a fan of technical wrestling, um, while this match was, on the brutal side as well and the vindictive and sadistic side, there's a lot of technical aspects to this, of course, it being John Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly. So if you're into that stuff, like I am, and you know, as somebody who, was an amateur wrestler at one point in time, um, stuff like this is just excites me when I see good grappling in pro wrestling, and it's this was peak in terms of technical wrestling, and both guys did a really good job. So yeah, kudos to them for this. They put on a good show. Uh, what I was mentioning earlier with Pac and Darby, that match, and John Moxley winning this, obviously he tapped out again. It seems like we are going to get that turn from the Death Riders on John Moxley eventually. It just makes sense to happen. There was a little moment when John Moxley lost this match where Claudio looked at Daniel Garcia and like I don't know, it seemed like a little bit weird. Maybe I was reading too much into it. Maybe it was just a random, moment or whatever, and I'm reaching too much. But it seemed like they were like second guessing John Moxley a little bit, because Moxley got mad. He attacked O'Reilly after the match, but then the conglomeration ran him off. And the Death Riders looked like they were second guessing John Moxley a little bit. Pac also wasn't out there with them. The rest of them were, but Pac was not out there. So that is interesting, and they made it a point to point that out on commentary as well. So um, it could be we have Pac turn on John Moxley, and the rest of the Death Riders turn on John Moxley, and Pac is the new leader of the Death Riders. We then went on to a no disqualification match for the AEW TNT Championship between Kyle Fletcher and Mark Briscoe. If Mark Briscoe lost, he would have to join the Don Callis family. Mark Briscoe does not lose. He beats Kyle Fletcher to win the TNT Championship in another brutal match, because it was a no disqualification match. There was a lot of blood in this, a lot of hard spots. Um, I feel like they could have spaced this out a little bit better. I don't think I personally would have done two back-to-back hardcore matches. Um, I think you need to space that out a little bit. I feel like that I don't want to say that's overkill, but I feel like you need to, have a really brutal match and then have a couple things in between, where it's like it's a normal match and then go back to the hardcore stuff, because then obviously the way you wrapped up the show, you could have even started with like Moxley and O'Reilly rather than starting with Pac and Darby Allin. I think that would have been a better start than Pac and Darby, but they decided to go the back-to-back hardcore match route, where Mark Briscoe wins the TNT Championship. Really good stuff from this match as well. Another match I would tell you to go back and watch because these two just tore the house down, and it just goes to show how good both of these guys are. And I still don't think a lot of people put the respect on Mark Briscoe's name that he deserves because Mark Briscoe is just so damn good. And like he's such a sympathetic character, where it's like you look at a guy like Mark Briscoe and he just, there's a lot of people in the world who can relate to him a lot more. Um, and, that's what makes him so sympathetic, to a lot of fans around the world. So I'm glad that he gets this TNT championship. I'm glad that he gets something, because he absolutely deserves it. We had a segment later on in the night where Konosuke Takeshita, Kazuchika Okada, and Kyle Fletcher were all backstage with Don Callis. They all announced that they were going to be part of the Continental Classic. Okada was blaming Takeshita for losing the CMLL Trios Championship match on the tailgate brawl. Kyle Fletcher then walked in and blamed both of them for not helping him retain the TNT Championship and said he's also going to enter the Continental Classic. So that's going to be an interesting thing. I wonder if we are on the verge of seeing the implosion of the Don Callis family, which is very interesting. With the fact that like, um, um, where was I going with this point? Uh, it's very interesting the fact that you added all these members to the Don Callis family recently, and we may be getting the implosion of them already. I know the Don Callis family has been a thing for quite some time now, but they just recently added a shit ton of members to this group. So, um, it's interesting that they're going that route, but I don't have a problem with it necessarily as long as, all of the, main guys go on to bigger and better things. Um, but I think that's definitely what we could be seeing from this, especially with what happened on the next in the next match where it was the $1 million trios match between the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander taking on Kenny Omega and Jurassic Express. The Young Bucks and Josh Alexander win this match. The Young Bucks pick up the pinfall. I forget who they pinned to win this match, but the Young Bucks and Alexander win. After the match, the Young Bucks have the money. They go up the ramp with Don Callis. The rest of the Don Callis family attacks Kenny Omega. And then the Young Bucks ultimately decide to drop the money and go save Kenny Omega, and they clear the ring of the Don Callis family. They shake hands with Jurassic Express and they hug it out with Kenny Omega, reuniting the Elite. And they walk to the back together and all that stuff. This was awesome. This was cool to see. I brought it up on the predictions podcast that we could be seeing the reunion of the OG Elite, and it seems like we could be looking at the OG Elite versus the Don Callis family as well down the road. So, and maybe that's what leads to the implosion of the Don Callis family is, the Elite beating them and then everybody going their separate ways. Obviously, that's months down the line. It's not going to happen, on the next episode of Dynamite or 2 weeks from now. It's going to be a span of, the next few months that something like that happens. Um, but I think this is cool. I think this could be a really cool storyline. Faction wars can be fun if it's booked right, and I think it's gonna be really hard to mess a story like this up anyway. So I think this can be a lot of fun. Um, we then went to the AEW Women's World Championship match. Chris Statlander beat Mercedes Moné to retain the AEW Women's World title. Again, a great match, a match I would tell you to go back and watch because they both really did a good job. Um, it started off slow. It did start off slow, and as towards the middle of the match, I was like, oh, this might be the weakest match on the card. But then they picked it up a little bit, and I was like, okay, you know what, they're doing their thing now. Um, I'm glad Chris Statlander retained. I'm glad they didn't go with Mercedes Moné. Um, I had a little bit of doubt in the back of my mind that maybe they'd end up going with Mercedes. Um, but I was mainly confident that Chris Statlander would retain, and that she did. I wonder if they're gonna go with the storyline that Mercedes Moné just can't win the big one. So that's an interesting route to take. Like I mentioned before, it's an interesting route because you have her win every other title around the world, and then she can't win the big one. So that's definitely an interesting thing. But yeah, Chris Statlander retains. I'm happy for that. There's gonna come a time where Mercedes Moné wins a AEW Women's World Title, but just not anytime soon. Uh, yeah, good stuff from both of them there. Started off a little bit slow, but they picked it up. Uh, that took us to the main event of the evening, the steel cage match for the AEW World Championship. Samoa Joe versus Hangman Adam Page. Samoa Joe defeats Hangman Adam Page for the AEW World Championship, but of course, not alone, not clean. It's a steel cage match. It's supposed to keep others out, but that's never the case in wrestling. So the ops come out. Hook comes out to supposedly save Hangman Adam Page, but then hits Hangman with the AEW World title and then reveals that he is wearing an Ops shirt, obviously aligned with the Ops the entire time, which is interesting considering he teamed with Eddie Kingston on the tailgate. So that's going to be interesting how that fallout is and what Eddie Kingston's point of view is on that is maybe Eddie Kingston joins the Ops, maybe he has been in on it as well. I can see that being a case. Um, a lot of factions going on in AEW right now. A lot of factions. So this was another good match. Another good match. Not as good as I was expecting though. Um, I was expecting a little bit more from this match. Um, but I think it was just, the time and like how late it was getting potentially. I know AEW doesn't usually care about stuff like that, but a pay-per-view for them, like Full Gear for them, is not their most important pay-per-view. Obviously there were a lot of important things that happened on the show, but I don't know, maybe I feel like there could have been more for this match. But it wasn't terrible at all. Like it wasn't a bad match. It was a really solid match. But I think I was just I had my expectations too high, because it's Hangman and it's Samoa Joe. But they were both bloodied. They were both brutal. It was a violent match as expected, and Samoa Joe walks out with the AEW World Championship. After the match, Swerve Strickland returns alongside Prince Nana, and this is absolutely hilarious because literally randomly during the main event, or maybe earlier in the pay-per-view, I was thinking about Swerve Strickland. I'm like, man, I wonder when he's gonna return. And then all of a sudden, Swerve Strickland appears after this match, and he is back. I actually didn't think he was gonna be back this soon. It feels like he hasn't been out for that long. Maybe I'm just, I'm going crazy and time's just flying. Because honestly, it is. Swerve Strickland looks jacked, man. He just looks much bigger. Um, he just looks like a beast now. Um, yeah, he looks absolutely fantastic. So he's looking a lot better. And this is going to be interesting because he takes out the Ops Dojo and then he stands side by side with Hangman Adam Page. So I'm curious where this is going to go. I wonder if we're going to have a situation, and this may be a reach, where Hangman and Swerve join along the Elites and the Ops maybe join alongside the Don Callis family and we get just a huge faction war. Maybe that's a little bit of a pipe dream for me. Um, to involve everybody in just one big rivalry, but I think that would be a pretty cool thing. I think it would be a pretty cool Anarchy in the Arena type match. Um, so maybe they go down that route. I highly, highly doubt that's the route that they want to go down, but I wouldn't be opposed to something like that at all. But that was AEW Full Gear 2025. Again, a really solid pay-per-view, and definitely a pay-per-view that if you missed, go back and watch it. Maybe there's some aspects where you can skip through and not pay attention to as much, but a lot of this I would tell you to go back and watch. Um, Really good stuff and some really important stuff happened on this pay-per-view. So, yeah, definitely good stuff from AEW, and I didn't find myself, like uh drowsing off a little bit like how I did with Wrestle Dream because I feel like Wrestle Dream it didn't have the energy that this pay-per-view did, and I know Rue felt the same way. Um, it just didn't feel exciting, Wrestle Dream. But I think it was because a lot of it was predictable. We knew how a lot of that was going to go down, whereas this pay-per-view wasn't that predictable at all, to be honest. A lot of the matches that happened here could have gone either way many, many times. So, um, and that's always a good thing. I always say if my prediction is wrong and it's not predictable, then you're doing something right. And wrestling shouldn't be predictable. And this pay-per-view was the complete opposite of predictable. Like, there were some things where, like, Chris Statlander winning, I'm like, okay, I saw that coming. Ricochet winning the national championship, okay, saw that coming. It's not to say that predictable isn't good. Sometimes predictable is good, and sometimes that's the right route you should take, and it just makes sense. Like Ricochet winning the national championship, it just makes sense. And FTR winning the tag titles, it just makes sense. So it's not to say that predictable is bad all the time. But for the most part, when your show is unpredictable, it's a good thing. Um, but yeah, that's my, thoughts on AEW Full Gear 2025. As always, I want to know what you guys have to say and what your thoughts are on this show. Did you enjoy this show? Did you hate it? Let me know down in the comments and whether you're listening on YouTube or Spotify. The pay-per-view post shows are on Spotify, unlike the weekly show post shows. That sounds so weird to say. Um, but yeah, let me know your thoughts on this. I will be back. You'll see the interview with Mikey Drew tomorrow at 11 a.m. and I will be back tomorrow with the Kayfabe recap where I preview everything that is upcoming in the week of professional wrestling. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. I will be here for that. But other than that, that is my thoughts on AEW Full Gear 2025, and this has been the paper review, the post-show review, whatever you want to call it. This has been the post-show review for AEW Full Gear 2025. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And as always, I will see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.